Alex had always loved the quiet of his room at the Space Research Academy. The walls were plain, the bed neatly made, and his desk stacked with star charts and notebooks full of sketches. Outside the window, the stars stretched endlessly, shining cold and distant. He often spent hours gazing at them, wondering what lay beyond human understanding. Tonight, though, his thoughts were restless, circling around something strange he had glimpsed during the Academy's simulation exercises, a shimmer of light, a shape moving too gracefully to be human. He had tried to convince himself it was imagination, a trick of the eye after staring at so many holographic star maps. But now, sitting on his bed, he felt a sudden warmth in the room, like someone had lit a faint lamp that hadn't existed a moment ago. His heart thudded, pounding harder than it had during any physical test he had ever endured. He turned toward the source. The shimmer solidified into a figure, tall and slender, almost floating slightly above the floor. Alex's breath caught. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin glowed faintly, pale like moonlight, with hints of silver that sparkled as she moved. Her hair flowed down past her waist, not settling but moving as if it had a life of its own, rippling like water in slow motion. And her eyes, Alex had no words for them. They were deep, endless pools of light, reflecting the stars themselves. He felt as if she could see everything inside him, every thought, every hidden fear. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft, yet it carried a weight, a calm authority that made the room feel both small and infinite. So you observed me with a curiosity that humans rarely show. Alex froze. His mouth opened, closed, and opened again. He had not been aware that he was staring, that his fascination had been obvious. His cheeks flushed, a heat creeping up his neck and face. I didn't mean to, he stammered, but the words felt useless. How could he explain this? How could he explain that he had never seen anyone or anything so mesmerizing in all his life? The girl, or alien, tilted her head slightly, studying him with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable. Curiosity, she repeated, almost like tasting the word. It is rare. Most beings either fear or worship what they do not understand. But you observe. You try to learn. Alex swallowed hard, his voice barely a whisper. I want to understand. I didn't mean to stare. I just wanted to know. The alien princess stepped closer, and with each movement, the light around her seemed to shift. The room, which had always felt so familiar and safe, now felt like a bridge to something immense, something he had only dreamed about. He could feel his heartbeat in his throat, his hands trembling slightly on his knees. You humans, she said softly, almost to herself. So small, yet something about you draws attention. You notice. You feel. You do not look away when you should. That is unusual. Alex didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to apologize, to explain that he was only a student, a human, fragile and ordinary. But another part, the part that had always felt a strange pride in his kind, wanted to say, yes, we are small, but we try. We see, we dare. Instead, he nodded almost imperceptibly. His mind raced, but his body felt frozen. He wanted to reach out, to say something meaningful, but words failed him. The silence stretched, and yet it wasn't uncomfortable. It was as if time itself had paused to witness this moment. The princess's gaze softened slightly, though her expression remained composed. She took a small step back, her hair catching the light in a way that made it look like she carried a piece of the galaxy with her. Observation is the first step, she said. But understanding is the one few can achieve. Alex felt a strange mix of fear and awe. Here was a being from beyond his world, standing in his small dorm room, yet she seemed more real, more alive than anything he had ever known. And in that moment, he realized that his curiosity, was not just about seeing or knowing. It was about connecting, about reaching across the impossible and daring to care. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know if she would leave, or if this was a test of some kind. But one thing was certain, his life, and his understanding of the universe, would never be the same again. And as the stars outside continued their silent vigil, Alex felt a spark of hope. The quiet thrill that perhaps, just perhaps, humans were capable of more than they had ever imagined. The alien princess lingered in the soft glow of Alex's dorm room, her presence impossible to ignore. Every movement she made seemed deliberate, graceful, and yet effortless, like a star drifting across the sky. Alex could feel his heart beating faster than ever, not from fear, but from awe, and maybe something deeper he did not yet understand. I didn't mean to intrude, Alex said finally, his voice low but steady. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to calm the rush of thoughts crashing through his mind. I wasn't trying to stare. I just wanted to see, to understand. You. The princess's luminous eyes softened. For a moment, the commanding aura around her seemed to falter, and she stepped closer, tilting her head as if studying not just him, but the very essence of humanity. Curiosity, she said again. It is not often that I encounter it with such earnestness. Most beings either fear or worship what they do not understand. You observe. You do not flee, you do not worship. You simply see. Alex swallowed hard. His chest felt tight, and he could sense the weight of her gaze pressing gently against him, not in a threatening way, but like a question hanging silently in the room. I guess humans are like that, he said, uncertain. We try to understand things. Even if we're small. Even if we're fragile. We try anyway. The princess's eyes shimmered, reflecting the distant stars outside his window. Fragile, she repeated thoughtfully. Yet you persist. Most species would hide, would cower, would turn away. But you confront what is unknown. You risk simply to know. Alex felt his throat tighten. She was not praising him, not exactly, yet every word resonated deeply. I suppose that's true, he said softly. I don't know why. Maybe it's curiosity. Maybe it's hope. Maybe it's just human nature. He paused, unsure if he should speak the next thought, but the words pressed forward anyway. Maybe it's because I've always dreamed of meeting someone like you, something bigger than the stars I study. Someone from a world I can't even imagine. The princess regarded him in silence, a faint hum vibrating through the room as if the air itself was aware of their exchange. Then, in a voice quieter than before, almost a whisper meant only for him, she said, Your honesty. It is strange, rare. Humans speak of hope often, yet few embody it. Few dare to reach beyond their small worlds. And yet, you do. Alex felt a lump in his throat. No one had ever spoken to him like this. Not a teacher, not a friend, not even his parents. She saw him not just the human, not just the student, but the part of him that refused to turn away from the impossible. And for the first time, he realized that curiosity was not shameful, not reckless. It was bravery. I want to understand, he whispered again. Not just see you, but understand your world. Your thoughts. Your feelings. Everything that makes you. You. The princess stepped closer still, the glow around her intensifying subtly, filling the room with a warmth that was neither air nor light, but something in between. Understanding, she said, is far more difficult than observation. Observation can be taught. Understanding must be felt. Her gaze softened, and for the first time, Alex thought he saw a hint of vulnerability in her. You human, have the courage not only to observe, but to feel. That is remarkable. Alex's hands trembled slightly. He wanted to reach out, to touch her, to bridge the impossible gap between their worlds. Yet he knew some things were too sacred to rush. I'll try, he said, almost a promise. I'll try to understand everything. If you'll let me. The princess's lips curved into the smallest of smiles, and her eyes sparkled brighter than before. Then perhaps, she said softly, you are not like others of your kind. Perhaps humans are not as small, after all. A silence fell over the room, but it was no longer empty or uncomfortable. It was full of possibility. Alex could feel the connection stretching between them, fragile yet undeniable, like a thread of light reaching across the void. He realized that for the first time in his life, he was not just looking at something extraordinary, he was standing beside it, sharing a moment that would forever change him. Why me? He asked quietly, almost to himself. Why do you notice me? Her gaze softened even more, and she tilted her head, thoughtful. Perhaps, she said, because you dared to see me as I am. Because you dared to feel when others only looked. That is rare. That is human. Alex smiled faintly, a warmth spreading in his chest. He did not fully understand what the future held or what risks lay ahead. But at that moment, he knew one thing clearly: humans, despite their size, their fragility, and their limitations, carried something incredible, something that could reach across galaxies, something that could touch even the most alien of hearts. And as the stars outside continued to shine, Alex felt the spark of a new kind of courage, a courage not for himself, but for the bond forming between two worlds. Two beings that somehow, against all odds, had found a fragile, shimmering connection. The room was quiet after their conversation, but the air was thick with tension. Alex could feel it, the unspoken weight of her presence, the sense that every word, every breath, was being measured. The alien princess studied him carefully, her luminous eyes reflecting not only the starlight outside, but also something deeper. Something almost like expectation. "You speak of understanding," she said finally, her voice calm but firm. "But understanding is more than words, human. It is action, and not all actions are easy." She stepped closer, her form radiating an almost tangible energy. "Curiosity alone does not define courage. You claim to feel, yet I must know if you can act when the impossible stands before you." Alex felt a shiver run down his spine. He wanted to respond, to say that he could, that he would do anything. But she didn't wait for words. Instead, she lifted her hand and the room shimmered, warping the familiar walls into something strange, alien, and vast. Alex found himself standing not in his dorm, but in a luminous chamber that seemed to exist between stars, suspended in space itself. "Here," she said, her voice echoing slightly, "is a fragment of my world. A place humans cannot normally enter. It is beautiful, yes, but it is also dangerous. Many have seen it and turned away in fear. Tell me, human, will you stand when others flee? Will you face the unknown without hesitation?" Alex's heart pounded. He looked around, marveling at the strange beauty. The walls were made of a shimmering material, translucent like glass but alive with flowing patterns of light. Strange creatures floated silently, their forms graceful and alien. He wanted to look, to study, to understand, but he could also feel the danger. The space seemed unstable, as if one wrong step could send him plummeting into the void. I will try," he said finally, his voice steadier than he felt. "I don't know if I can do it perfectly, but I won't turn away." The princess's eyes softened slightly, but there was still a test in them. "Try is not enough. You must choose. Courage is not measured by the absence of fear, but by what you do despite it." Suddenly, a shadow moved across the chamber. A creature unlike anything Alex had ever seen emerged, its form shifting constantly, like smoke and liquid combined. Its gaze locked onto him, and a chill ran through his veins. He wanted to step back, to hide, but the princess's eyes were on him, steady and unwavering. "Do you run?" she asked. Alex shook his head, even though his body trembled. "No, I face it." The creature advanced, and instinct took over. He dodged a strike that could have ended him instantly. He remembered lessons from simulations, from his studies, from every story of human courage he had ever read. He jumped, rolled, and acted, not perfectly, but with determination. Every movement was fueled by one thing: the refusal to fail, the refusal to let fear control him. The princess observed silently, her expression unreadable. And then, as the creature hesitated, something incredible happened. It recoiled, as if respecting his courage, and then dissipated into the glowing floor. Alex sank to his knees, gasping for breath, his body trembling from adrenaline and fear. He looked up at the princess, expecting judgment or disappointment. Instead, she smiled a small, approving curve of her lips that lit the chamber brighter than any star outside. "You see, human," she said softly, "fear is not shameful. But what you do despite fear, that is power. You possess something rare. The courage to stand, even when the universe seems to oppose you." Alex's chest heaved, and a smile slowly formed on his face. He realized that this was more than a test. She was showing him what humans could be, how, even fragile and small, they could rise to meet the impossible, and that sometimes, that courage alone was enough to inspire worlds. I just did what I thought was right," Alex said humbly. "I didn't think it mattered that much." "It matters," she replied firmly. "It always matters. Courage is not measured by victory, human. It is measured by the willingness to act, to risk, to care when all odds are against you. That is what sets your kind apart." Alex felt a swell of pride, not arrogance, but quiet, deep pride. Humans were small, yes. Fragile, yes. But they burned. They dared. And even here, in a world of stars and dangers beyond his comprehension, he had proven that fire within him. The chamber dissolved slowly, returning him to his dorm room. The stars outside shone calmly, indifferent yet familiar. And the princess, standing near the window, seemed to radiate approval and curiosity at once. "You have begun to understand, human," she said. "But this is only the first step. Alex nodded, feeling both fear and exhilaration. He did not know what came next. But for the first time, he felt a spark of destiny. A quiet certainty that humans, even small and fragile, could shine across galaxies. And in that moment, he realized that his journey was only beginning, and that the universe, vast and unknown, had finally noticed the fire within him. Alex's dorm room felt impossibly small after the chamber test. Yet the presence of the alien princess made every corner feel alive, charged with energy he could not fully comprehend. Her luminous eyes watched him closely, still curious, still assessing. Alex realized that the challenges were far from over. This was not just about bravery. It was about proving that humans, despite being fragile, despite being small, could rise above fear and act with wisdom. "I must show you something," Alex said, trying to sound confident. His voice wavered slightly, but he could feel determination spreading through him. "Something about humans. About why we dare, even when danger is all around us." The princess tilted her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "Then show me, human. Prove that what sets you apart is more than words." Alex led her to the observation deck of the academy. From there, the twin moons of their solar system glimmered against the vast black canvas of space. Ships moved like tiny fireflies below, and distant stars sparkled like diamonds in the infinite sky. He took a deep breath. "Look out there," he said. "This is our world, our home. And humans, we are not the strongest or the fastest or the biggest. But we adapt. We learn, we fight. We protect. We dream. And we never, ever give up, no matter the odds." The princess's gaze lingered on him, unblinking, almost as if weighing his every word. Then, without warning, alarms rang throughout the academy. The sound was sharp, urgent. Alex's heart jumped into his throat. He turned toward the source. Red lights flashed across the observation deck, and the holographic screens lit up with the image of an approaching scout ship. The princess stiffened, her calm aura momentarily disrupted. "They are here," she said softly. "They suspect my presence. You, human. Are you prepared to act?" Alex swallowed hard. I will do what I can," he said. "I won't let them harm you." The princess's eyes sparkled with a mix of surprise and curiosity. "Most humans would hide, flee, or surrender," she said. "But you stand. That is rare. That is why I observe you." Adrenaline surged through Alex. He scanned the control panels on the observation deck, searching for anything he could use. The Academy's security systems were designed for training exercises, not real threats, but humans were clever. Improvisation had always been their strength. He grabbed an experimental energy net, a prototype used for zero-gravity simulations, and adjusted its settings. It was risky, it might fail, or worse, explode, but it was all he had. The scout ship drew closer, a sleek dark silhouette against the starlit sky, sending a pulse of scanning energy toward the deck. Alex leapt into action. "Cover me," he shouted instinctively, though he knew she didn't need it. But the words gave him courage. The net glowed in his hands, crackling with restrained energy. He hurled it toward the ship's scanning beam. Sparks flew as the energy tangled with the alien tech, causing it to short-circuit. The princess watched silently, her expression unreadable at first. And then, a small smile appeared on her lips. "Clever," she murmured. "Your kind relies on wit, not just strength. That is remarkable." The scout ship hesitated, recalculating, its pulse faltering. Alex's hands shook, but he held steady, adjusting the net repeatedly. Slowly, methodically, he managed to disable the ship's scanning systems, forcing it to retreat. The red lights dimmed, alarms ceased, and the observation deck returned to calm. Alex sank to the floor, his chest heaving, sweat beading his forehead. He looked at the princess, unsure what her reaction would be. But instead of judgment, he found admiration. She had not smiled often, but now, her eyes glimmered with approval and something else, respect. "You humans," she said softly, "are unpredictable. You are fragile, yet you endure. You are small, yet you can protect, invent, and confront threats that might destroy you. That is extraordinary." Alex felt warmth flood his chest. Not pride, not arrogance, but a deep, quiet joy. He realized that humans did not need to be the strongest in the universe. Their courage, their resourcefulness, their refusal to give up, that was their power. The princess stepped closer, her hair shimmering like liquid silver under the starlight. "You have passed another test, human," she said. "But the universe is vast and the trials you will face are far from over. Remember this. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is what you do when the impossible stands before you. Alex nodded, determination hardening within him. The night sky stretched endlessly before them, and he felt small, yes, but not powerless. For the first time, he understood the truth the princess had been trying to show him. Humans could be fragile, humans could fail, but when they dared to act, when they dared to stand, they could change worlds. And in that moment, as the stars shimmered quietly, Alex knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would test him, challenge him, and reveal the extraordinary heart of humanity to the universe. The calm after the retreat of the scout ship was short-lived. Alex could still feel the vibrations of the alien energy in the observation deck beneath his feet, a reminder that danger was never far away. The princess stood beside him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim starlight, watching him with a mixture of curiosity and something deeper, perhaps admiration, perhaps calculation. "They will not leave quietly," she said softly, almost as if speaking to herself. "Others will come. And soon." Alex's chest tightened. He had no weapons, no backup, and yet a strange confidence coursed through him. Fear was there, yes, sharp and insistent, but it no longer paralyzed him. It sharpened his mind. "Then I'll face them," he said firmly. "I don't care if I'm human. I will protect you." The princess's eyes widened slightly, and a faint, almost imperceptible smile curved her lips. "You will protect me? Against your own kind? Against the unknown?" "Yes," Alex said. His voice held an unwavering tone he barely recognized as his own. "Not for glory, not for reward, but because it's the right thing to do. Because fear does not decide what is right." Her gaze lingered on him for a long moment. "Most beings your size, your species, they would flee. They would surrender, bow, or hide. Yet you stand. That is rare. That is human." Alex did not have time to respond. The alarms blared again, sharper this time, and the starlit sky outside the observation deck flickered with the approach of another scout vessel, larger and faster. Its shadow stretched across the building like a dark cloud, and Alex could see the sensors scanning the deck, searching for her presence. "We need a plan," Alex muttered, already scanning the deck's equipment. Every object, every tool, every piece of experimental machinery became a potential weapon or shield. His mind raced. He remembered lessons from simulations, emergency drills, even stories of human soldiers who had survived impossible odds. Improvisation, that was the human way. The princess stepped closer. "I trust you, human. But remember, strength alone will not save you. You must think. You must act with heart." Alex nodded, gripping the experimental energy net he had used before. "Then I'll combine both." He adjusted the net, enhancing its field to cover a wider area. He moved quickly, using the observation deck's railings and consoles for cover, anticipating the scout's scanning pulses. The ship fired a brief laser sweep, and Alex ducked just in time, feeling the heat of the energy brushing past him. For a moment, time seemed suspended. The alien princess watched, her eyes tracking every motion he made, every calculation, every risk he took. Alex realized that she wasn't just observing his skill, she was observing his humanity. Courage without care was empty. Courage for the sake of heart, that was what mattered. He launched the net again, this time targeting the scout's propulsion system. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the ship wobbled, struggling to maintain position. Alex dove behind a console to avoid a stray energy pulse, his body trembling from adrenaline. But he refused to give up. Every pulse of fear was met with determination. Every doubt was met with action. Finally, the scout ship retreated, disabled but not destroyed. Alex sank to the floor, chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face. He looked up at the princess, unsure what to expect. Praise? Indifference? Criticism? Instead, she extended a hand toward him, her fingers glowing faintly. "You have done more than survive, human. You have acted with reason, courage, and heart. That is remarkable." Alex's hands shook as he reached toward hers, not just in obedience or reverence, but in understanding. For the first time, he felt the weight of human resilience reflected in another world's eyes. Humans were small, fragile, limited, but they were also inventive, daring, and capable of extraordinary bravery. I didn't do it for you," he said quietly, almost ashamed of his own hesitation to explain. "I did it because it was right. Because I couldn't stand by and do nothing." The princess's smile widened slightly, her glowing eyes softening. That is the essence of humanity, she said softly. Not the weapons, not the speed, not the size, but the choice to act rightly, even when the outcome is uncertain. That is what sets you apart in the universe. Alex felt a deep warmth in his chest, a mixture of relief, pride, and awe. He had faced danger, fear, and uncertainty, and in doing so, he had proven what humans could be. He realized that courage was not a momentary act, but a living, breathing choice. And in that choice, even the smallest human could shine brighter than the most brilliant star. The princess looked out at the starlit horizon, then back at him. Remember this, human. You may be fragile, but fragility does not define you. Your heart, your courage, your determination. These define humanity, and they are stronger than anything the universe can throw at you. Alex nodded silently, his resolve solidifying. He did not know what challenges lay ahead, or what dangers would come next. But he knew one thing clearly: humans, no matter how small, could stand against the impossible, and sometimes that was enough to change the course of worlds. The quiet after the retreat of the scout ships was profound. The observation deck hummed softly, the faint glow of the stars outside reflecting in the glass and in the alien princess's luminous eyes. Alex leaned against the railing, his chest still heaving from adrenaline, his hands trembling slightly from the rush of fear and relief. Yet in the midst of exhaustion, there was something else, a strange, growing warmth that he could not fully name. The princess stood beside him, her presence calm and powerful, yet not unapproachable. She studied him, as she always did, but now her gaze seemed softer, more curious in a way that made Alex feel exposed and yet understood. "Human," she said, her voice quiet, almost reflective. "You are unusual. You risk life, yet you do not seek reward. You act out of empathy and a sense of justice that is rare in the universe." Alex shook his head, unsure how to respond. I didn't think about reward," he said softly. I couldn't stand by. I couldn't do nothing. It felt wrong." Her gaze softened further, a faint glow emanating from her eyes. "Humans often act without thinking of consequence, yet sometimes it is the right instinct. Perhaps that is why you endure where others fail. Not because you are stronger, not because you are cleverer, but because your heart guides you." Alex felt a lump form in his throat. No one had ever described him this way. Teachers had praised his intelligence, friends had admired his work, but never had someone recognized the core of his humanity, the part of him that acted even when fear and doubt screamed otherwise. He looked at her and realized something important. Despite all her alien grace and power, there was vulnerability there, a fragile part she did not openly reveal. You rely on people to act, don't you?" he asked carefully. "Even if you're powerful, you can't do everything yourself." The princess blinked slowly, considering his words. "Perhaps," she admitted. "Even someone from my world, someone trained in power and knowledge, cannot face all threats alone. And yet, you human, act without fear. You act with heart, that is what is remarkable about your kind." Alex felt a warmth in his chest, a quiet pride mingled with humility. "Maybe that's what humans are best at," he said softly. "We're not the fastest, not the strongest, not the smartest. But we care. We try. And sometimes that's enough." She studied him, her expression unchanging yet full of depth. "It is more than enough," she said, stepping closer. The soft glow around her seemed to intensify, bathing them both in gentle light. "You have shown me that courage is not measured by size or strength, but by the willingness to risk oneself for others. That is rare. That is human." For the first time, Alex dared to meet her eyes fully. In them, he saw awe, curiosity, and something he could not define, but it stirred something deep inside him. I don't know if I'm worthy," he admitted quietly. "I'm just human. Small, fragile. But I try." The princess's lips curved into the faintest smile. "You are worthy, human. You are more than you realize. Your fragility is not weakness. Your perseverance is strength. Your heart is what makes you extraordinary." Alex's chest tightened. He had never felt so seen, so understood. "I thank you," he said, his voice trembling. "Not just for saying that, but for noticing me, seeing me for who I am." She nodded slowly, almost imperceptibly. "That is what I have observed, human. That even the smallest spark of courage, empathy, and hope can illuminate the darkest void. And you carry that light within you. That is why I am here. That is why I stay." A silence followed, not empty, but full of connection. The stars outside seemed to hum softly, the twin moons reflecting in their eyes like mirrors of the universe itself. Alex felt the weight of possibility pressing on him, the understanding that humans, though small, could leave marks on worlds far beyond their own. And in that understanding, he felt pride, hope, and an unshakable sense of purpose. "You have taught me something today," the princess said finally, her voice gentle, almost tender. "Not all beings are defined by power, by speed, or knowledge. Some are defined by heart.